this timer on so that I can keep track of my time here. Well, I have a habit of going over, and I want to thank Isabel and Maria, and I want to especially thank Caroline. I want to thank Shosh, who's gonna just put me to shame after I go, and my new friend Lucas over here, who I just traded a book for. My book is Everything I Think Is On My Mind. It's for sale for $15, and I expect every one of you to buy a copy. My first poem is a new poem. It's a little haiku called Naturist. It is not in my nature to not ask questions when I need answers. So most of these poems have been published. And I decided I wouldn't just do poems that have been published because I only started trying to be published during the pandemic after over 20 years of writing. So, survival of the Thinkiest. I come from a place where selfishness is synonymous with survival. It is not uncommon for me to traverse knee-deep snow when getting out of bed on sweltering summer days. And despite that I am numb from knee to ankle, the soles of my feet burn from scorching summer sand. There are people who claim to feel no pain when we're walking barefoot over hot coals. Welcome to the world of mind over matter, where people feel no pain but their feet are bloody and blistered. I come from a place where selfishness is synonymous with survival, where success cannot happen without sacrifice. I come from a place called Earth, a giant ball of dirt, stone, water, and gases, littered with plants and animals. Amongst the animals is a creature called human. Unlike the rest who simply survive, humans think, humans reason, humans justify. There are over 7 billion humans scurrying about trying to find their place on this place called Earth. If one of these thinking, reasoning, justifying creatures truly found its place, it could stay put. But we all have to move to get out of bed. The tree that hugged its humans. The first house my parents bought, 11 Burton Drive in Atlanta, Georgia, was a split-level brick house with a magnolia tree in the front yard. The first and only house my parents built, 305 Fernhill Court in Mobile, Alabama, was a larger split-level brick house, oaks and pines dotting both the front and back yards. As a surprise for Mom, Dad had a juvenile magnolia planted in the front yard. Rita Ann Paplanis Franco, aka Mommy Salami, was awed by magnolia blossoms. Unbeknownst to her husband, aka Dude, this tree was male, which didn't bloom, but it grew tall with twisted, gnarled branches, leaves as large as my adult hands, rich forest green, crisp, slick, shiny, with velvety, soft undersides. As beautiful and aromatic blossoms of magnolias are, the leaves give them their iconic strength of character. My mother's tree is now 41 years old, tall and wide as a New England town square Christmas tree. When Mom moved to a patio home in 1993, it was half its current size. I believe pieces of my family's soul live in the tree. The roots are my father digging deeper in the ground yearly, providing stability, season after season, milestone after milestone, hurricane after hurricane, barbecue after barbecue. The branches are my brothers and myself. The longer they grew, the more offshoots they produced, the more life we lived, crushes, first dates, bar mitzvahs, graduations, college, adulthood. Mom is the leaves, soaking in the sunlight, nourishing her tree with unbridled love, absorbing ever-present rainstorms that plague Mobile, Alabama, and turmoil that beset our family. Rita, or A-Tier as we called her, was a force to be reckoned with and was never without a hug for anyone in her family. After Mom died, I flew into Mobile from Maine. I asked my brother Paul to drive by the house. The tree was magnanimous. Paul stopped the car for a minute. We stared at a chunk of our history, then left for the funeral home to view the body. I knew if I walked over to the tree and touched a leaf, I would have been touched by my mother's soul. A soul that would find it impossible to not hug her son from the afterlife. tomatoes are not the only things that are indeterminate. Hope, are you a perennial flower propagated from seed, blown an unknown distance by wind lodged into soil, germinating from wet of rain and warmth of sun, sprouting from ground into existence, climbing into atmosphere to breathe sweet oxygen, maybe a few inches tall or maybe several feet. Maybe you will climb a stake, cage, or trellis, or wrap yourself around a tree as leaves sprout from your stems. Buds will appear and flowers will happen. They might produce nectar to feed hummingbirds and honeybees. They might open wide and grow berries or beans or tomatoes. They might produce perfume aroma to be picked or pruned for the purpose of romance. Or you might wilt after flowers and fruit happen, to produce seed to be spread by winds or simply dropped. And your roots may lie dormant for you to spring forward each next spring more resilient than before. And this was in a recent anthology for Hiroshima Day. It's called the Hiroshima Haiku. She gripped her basket whilst foraging for mushrooms, then the plane flew by. So this is called A Most Honorable Warrior's Death. So many poetry people I know have said poetry has saved their lives. The same story is told in a million different voices around the world. Poets are warriors. Poets are fighters. Poets are Olympic pugilists. Our enemies, our nemesis, our sparring partners are simultaneously our mirrors and our pasts. Our present tense existences are fleeting moments in which we contemplate lives, decisions, relationships, families. Our words run through veins to hearts and through nerves to brains. We spit them out as poetry, exposing them to the elements, sending them to a glorious death, memorialized on page, to be read both out loud and in silence, not only by us, but also others who have experienced pieces of our lives in their separate lives. Their epitaphs are our epitaphs. Our poetry is a graveyard that transforms death into life. Okay, this is a little silly. It's called What We Don't Know the Cows Know About Us. I slept so erratically, I pulled the bottom right-hand corner off the contour sheet from the bed. It was a cold enough morning for me to spend an extra 2 or 3 minutes soaking in the hot of the shower. I dried off, dressed, took my morning pills, ate a banana, and grabbed a cup of hot tea. I drove to the Saturday farmer's market. No one was there because it was Monday. There were 3 cows in the field across the road. They weren't looking at me, but I knew they were looking at me when I wasn't looking at them, aware of the mistake I had made, telling one another, look, another human who forgot what day it was. Okay, it is autumn, fall and free. They are yellow, red, orange, green, and brown. They are maroon, rust, ochre, umber, goldenrod, burnt sienna, and sunshine. They are paprika, turmeric, ginger, cinnamon, cardamom, and mace. They are mustard, ketchup, barbecue sauce, and salsa. They are melted, processed cheese, product, atop blue tortilla chips with avocado, purple olives, red onion, and electric orange habaneros. They are every color in a carrot cake. They are a swirl of melted milk chocolate and pureed raspberries. They are Mother Nature performing a striptease. These autumn leaves. And so these next 2 pieces, oh, I'm really short, wow, and are new. So this is called And I Lived Ever After. Once upon a time I was a child filled with wonderment and curiosity. I was a child who colored outside the lines, not because he could, but because it was hard to stay inside the line. It was not seen as adventurous or abstract, but labeled wrong. Once upon a time, I was an awkward teenager stuck inside a fragile shell. I tack it from the inside, hoping to break free of shyness and bullying. Sometimes a piece would chip off, allowing me to breathe new, fresh air. It also repaired itself as I slept, so I learned the shell's structural misgivings. Then, one day, it broke apart into several large fragments that fell onto the space that surrounded my life. I carefully stepped over the broken glass, jagged edge of what was left of the shell. Once upon a time, I was an ambitious young man in his 20s. By all accounts, my future was bright. I actually had a plan that made sense. My smile was my calling card. My attitude was mentally positive. Once upon a time, I was almost 29. My future was calling me, and I answered the phone every time. Then one day, I woke up crying. I woke up crying for no reason at all. My future was nowhere to be found inside my mind. The crying was as jagged as the edge of the shell I had escaped from. Now my psyche was walking on its tiptoes, trying to avoid all the broken glass from the shell it thought it had left behind. I had to navigate Titanic around iceberg tears, but my tears melted into enough saline to sink my existence into oblivion. Luckily, I wore a life jacket which allowed me to float through debris of every shipwreck I never knew I caused. I passed out and woke one day atop Ararat. I climbed down the mount. All the tears had resurfaced my soul like a Susan Lucci infomercial chemical peel. When I found a mirror, I looked myself in the eyes and woke up. Once upon a time, I compiled a collection of poetry made of over 30 years of laughter and tears. I infused every word with emotions, so each page of poetry could steep into humanity too.
Wow.
Okay. And you get to read this piece, which I love. It's one of my signature pieces, How to Get Away with Public Nudity. When I read my poetry, I empty myself of me. I'm not pretending to be someone else. I'm not exactly stepping out of myself. Maybe I'm stripping bare without removing any clothing. Maybe the clothes I choose to wear are a costume I use to hide in plain sight. Maybe the words I commit to page and extol through voice are my version of streaking across the 50-yard line while Lady Gaga sings the Star-Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl. When I empty myself of me, when I read my poetry, it's like tossing a deck of cards in the air and hoping the jokers land face up. Every day I wake up is a wild card that tries to learn its way out of being blind. When I empty myself of me, when I read my poetry, every time I play 52 pickup, I pick up the cards, put them back in the box, return to living life, and because I'm a poet, I get to empty myself of me every time I write a new poem, if I choose. I still have 2 minutes left. I'm going to just pick this one from the back, which is called, I gotta find it real quick. Why Wonderbread is the true 8th wonder of this wondrous world. I am not Spider-Man, but I have climbed. God only knows how many walls in my lifetime. My fingertips are so cut and calloused they barely have fingerprints, but they are addicted to walls. When I get to the top of a wall, I turn into Humpty Dumpty. And as I sit atop the wall narrows and narrows, and I have a great fall. But all the king's horses and all the king's men do not exist in my world, and it never fails to be one of those so hot you can fry an egg days. And when I hit the ground, my shell breaks perfectly in half, and I turn into a perfect sunny-side up egg. The person who discovers me calls the Guinness Book of World Records, who fly down in their corporate Concorde jet, then measure my diameter and proclaim me to be the largest sunny-side up egg ever. And since no one knows I was the egg, the person who discovers me gets a photo on the cover of the New York Post breaking my yellow with a slice of burnt toast. If I should ever climb a wall, have a great fall, and land sunny side up, I hope whoever discovers me calls Ripley's Believe It or Not. They too have a corporate Concorde, but they always travel with at least a case of Wonderbread, and Wonderbread makes the most wonderful toast. Ross will tell you.